The mind can see as well as the body. The body forgets sometimes, but the mind never forgets. And how far back into the past do your recollections extend? I could scarcely walk when my mother, who was called Vasiliki, which means royal, said the young girl, tossing her head proudly, took me by the hand, and after putting in our purse all the money we possessed, we went out, both covered with veils, to solicit alms for the prisoners, saying, He who giveth to the poor lendeth to the Lord. Then when our purse was full we returned to the palace, and without saying a word to my father, we sent it to the convent, where it was divided amongst the prisoners. And how old were you at that time? I was 3 years old, said Haiti. Then you remember everything that went on about you from the time when you were 3 years old? Said Albert. Everything. Count, said Albert, in a low tone to Monte Cristo, do allow the Signora to tell me something of her history. You prohibited my mentioning my father's name to her, but perhaps she will allude to him of her own accord in the course of the recital, and you have no idea how delighted I should be to hear our name pronounced by such beautiful lips. Monte Cristo turned to Haiti, and with an expression of countenance which commanded her to pay the most implicit attention to his words, he said in Greek, Tell us the fate of your father, but neither the name of the traitor nor the treason. Haiti sighed deeply, and a shade of sadness clouded her beautiful brow. What are you saying to her? Said Mercer in an undertone. I again reminded her that you were a friend, and that she need not conceal anything from you. Then, said Albert, this pious pilgrimage in behalf of the prisoners was your first remembrance. What is the next? Oh, then I remember as if it were but yesterday sitting under the shade of some sycamore trees, on the borders of a lake, in the waters of which the trembling foliage was reflected as in a mirror. Under the oldest and thickest of these trees, reclining on cushions, sat my father, my mother was at his feet, and I, childlike, amused myself by playing with his long white beard which descended to his girdle, or with the diamond hilt of the scimitar attached to his girdle. Then from time to time there came to him an Albanian who said something to which I paid no attention, but which he always answered in the same tone of voice, either kill, or pardon. It is very strange, said Albert, to hear such words proceed from the mouth of anyone but an actress on the stage, and one needs constantly to be saying to one's self, this is no fiction, it is all reality, in order to believe it. And how does France appear in your eyes, accustomed as they have been to gaze on such enchanted scenes? I think it is a fine country, said Haiti, but I see France as it really is, because I look on it with the eyes of a woman, whereas my own country, which I can only judge of from the impression produced on my childish mind, always seems enveloped in a vague atmosphere, which is luminous or otherwise, according as my remembrances of it are sad or joyous. So young, said Albert, forgetting at the moment the Count's command that he should ask no questions of the slave herself, is it possible that you can have known what suffering is except by name? Haiti turned her eyes towards Monte Cristo, who, making at the same time some imperceptible sign, murmured, go on. Nothing is ever so firmly impressed on the mind as the memory of our early childhood, and with the exception of the two scenes I have just described to you, all my earliest reminiscences are fraught with deepest sadness. Speak, speak, Signora, said Albert, I am listening with the most intense delight and interest to all you say. Haiti answered his remark with a melancholy smile. You wish me, then, to relate the history of my past sorrows? Said she. I beg you to do so, replied Albert. Well, I was but 4 years old when one night I was suddenly awakened by my mother. We were in the palace of Yanina. She snatched me from the cushions on which I was sleeping, and on opening my eyes I saw hers filled with tears. She took me away without speaking. When I saw her weeping I began to cry too. Hush, child, said she. At other times, in spite of maternal endearments or threats, I had with a child's caprice been accustomed to indulge my feelings of sorrow or anger by crying as much as I felt inclined, but on this occasion there was an intonation of such extreme terror in my mother's voice when she enjoined me to silence, that I ceased crying as soon as her command was given. She bore me rapidly away. I saw then that we were descending a large staircase. Around us were all my mother's servants carrying trunks, bags, ornaments, jewels, purses of gold, with which they were hurrying away in the greatest distraction. Behind the women came a guard of 20 men armed with long guns and pistols, and dressed in the costume which the Greeks have assumed since they have again become a nation. You may imagine there was something startling and ominous, said Haiti, shaking her head and turning pale at the mere remembrance of the scene, in this long file of slaves and women only half aroused from sleep, or at least so they appeared to me, who was myself scarcely awake. Here and there on the walls of the staircase, were reflected gigantic shadows, which trembled in the flickering light of the pine torches till they seemed to reach to the vaulted roof above. "Quick!" said a voice at the end of the gallery. This voice made every one bow before it, resembling in its effect the wind passing over a field of wheat, by its superior strength forcing every ear to yield obeisance. As for me, it made me tremble. This voice was that of my father. He came last, clothed in his splendid robes and holding in his hand the carbine which your emperor presented him. He was leaning on the shoulder of his favorite Selim, and he drove us all before him, as a shepherd would his straggling flock. My father, said Haiti, raising her head, was that illustrious man known in Europe under the name of Ali Tepelini, Pasha of Yanina, and before whom Turkey trembled. Albert, without knowing why, started on hearing these words pronounced with such a haughty and dignified accent. It appeared to him as if there was something supernaturally gloomy and terrible in the expression which gleamed from the brilliant eyes of Haiti at this moment. She appeared like a pythoness evoking a spectre, as she recalled to his mind the remembrance of the fearful death of this man, to the news of which all Europe had listened with horror. Soon, said Haiti, we halted on our march, and found ourselves on the borders of a lake. My mother pressed me to her throbbing heart, and at the distance of a few paces I saw my father, who was glancing anxiously around. Four marble steps led down to the water's edge, and below them was a boat floating on the tide. From where we stood I could see in the middle of the lake a large blank mass. It was the kiosk to which we were going. This kiosk appeared to me to be at a considerable distance, perhaps on account of the darkness of the night, which prevented any object from being more than partially discerned. We stepped into the boat. I remember well that the oars made no noise whatever in striking the water, and when I leaned over to ascertain the cause I saw that they were muffled with the sashes of our palicars. Besides the rowers, the boat contained only the women, my father, mother, Salim, and myself. The palicars had remained on the shore of the lake, ready to cover our retreat. They were kneeling on the lowest of the marble steps, and in that manner intended making a rampart of the three others, in case of pursuit. Our bark flew before the wind. "Why does the boat go so fast?" asked I of my mother. Greek militiamen in the War for Independence. Ed. Silence, child. Hush, we are flying.